Prepping hair. All right, you guys. Prepping your hair for any updo is one of the most important steps that you can do before you get started. And there is a handful of reasons why, which I'm going to tell you right now. So the first thing that you want to do before you get started is just brush through the hair. And the reason that this is important is obviously because you want to make sure that it's tangle-free and it's ready to go for any updo that you're about to do. But the other reason why this is important is because it starts to give you a good idea of the texture of the hair. You can start to figure out how thick it is. You can start to mentally prep for how you're gonna section and divide the hair. So as I'm brushing through it, before I do any product, I'm kind of getting a feel for her head. I'm feeling around the shape. I'm thinking about the texture, whether it's coarse, whether it's fine, whether it's thin, getting a good feel for it. And that's really important part of brushing through it before you even get started. So brushing the hair is the first part of prepping. Now, the next thing you want to do is before you start doing any products and after you brush through, you're just going to feel and see, is the root oily? Is it dry? What does it need? So if you're working on someone who has very oily hair, then you want to go through in the roots right away and prep with dry shampoo. This is a really important step because your updo is not going to be soft and full or hold very well if you have any kind of oil weighing the hair down. So I go through and I take my dry shampoo and I start to follow the hairline. So in this case, on this mannequin, she's got a side part here. So I'm just gonna start by going through and lifting up sections and spraying pretty liberally at the root if she's got a lot of oil. So you just wanna go through, lift the hair straight up and spray at the root. And that will start to absorb that oil and make sure that you don't have anything weighing the hair down. Now, in extreme cases, if the hair is really oily, then you want to even go in with a blow dryer, use some dry shampoo, take a blow dryer and kind of blast the roots a little bit to get some lift. Now, the other reason that you would maybe use dry shampoo at the roots is if the hair is more fine, and that can start to create some bulk and volume in the hair before you even get started. So you want to go through and do that. Now, one thing to keep in mind with dry shampoos, some of them can come off kind of white. And so if you have someone with brown hair, black hair, just darker hair in general, and you're spraying dry shampoo liberally, you're gonna see that. And so you want to start at the middle, lift up, so you're not at the hairline, kind of in the middle of the head, and do a tester first, just to make sure there isn't any white residue. So some of that can be solved with the type of dry shampoo you use, but sometimes it just shows up more. So you wanna be careful with that first, which is why I go in the middle first where you're not gonna see it, do a little test run, make sure it's good, and then I'll go through and do it around the hairline if need be. So once you got the dry shampoo in, you can kind of work it in a little bit with your fingers. The next step is to use a flexible whole hairspray from the root all the way to the end. Now, I use a flexible hold hairspray, and I call this like my working hairspray. And the reason that I do this is because every updo that I do, I obviously want to stay. And so by starting out with using a flexible hold hairspray, I'm getting a good base of product in the hair. I'm gonna be able to seal the cuticle a little bit, get some grit in there, and get a little bit of hold before I start working. So what I like to do is go through, and I just start with the front, and I spray root to end. And then I take another section and do the same thing. So I'm kind of just taking sections, starting from the front and working toward the back, and spraying from root to end, and going through and doing it through the whole head. So you don't have to get really close. You can do it from about 6 inches or so away and just liberally spray your flexible hold hairspray. Now, the other thing that's going to be beneficial to you when you're doing this is, again, you're kind of figuring out the density of the hair, how much hair that they have. You can start to see if they have a lot of flyaways. You'll start to see right away if the hair holds product well. So for example, on this mannequin head, as I'm spraying and moving the hair around, it's really sticking. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this hair is holding product really well. If I were to do this on somebody who had heavier, thicker hair, and I spray it, move the hair out of the way, and it just falls back down, that's a sign to me that I'm gonna have to use a lot more product on this person because it's not sticking super well. So those are the things that are running through my head as I'm prepping hair so I can know how to move forward as I work on the updo. Now, once you have the hairspray all the way through, then you go through and brush it again. So this way, once you start to curl and section, you're not gonna have stiff hair that's sticky because you've brushed it through. What this also does is disperse the product through the hair. So it kind of works that dry shampoo into the roots. It works the working hairspray or the flexible hold hairspray from the root to the end. And so you know you have a pretty good saturation of product to get started. So aside from the exception of naturally curly hair, this is what I do on every single updo before I get started. I start with checking out the roots. First I start with brushing it through. Then I check the roots to see if I need dry shampoo or a little bit of blow drying. And then I go through with dry shampoo if I need it. And then I use flexible hold hairspray through the whole thing. And then I brush through it. And that is how I prep each and every updo that I do. Now, something to keep in mind when you're prepping the hair is the initial prep is just what I said. It's the initial prep. You're gonna continue to do prep work as you work through your updo. So what do I mean by that? I see a lot of people prep hair and then they get started curling it all and then they start doing their updo. I want that to be a thing of the past. There are some updos that you might curl all the way, but that is not the general way that we're gonna go. We are gonna start by sectioning the hair out and conquering the hair section by section and being really intentional about how we curl it and where we place the curls. So when you go through and you just curl hair right away and then you start pulling it apart and sectioning and pinning, that's when it gets frizzy, that's when it gets messy, and that's when you start to lose control. So my next step in prepping the hair is actually sectioning. So when I think of prepping, I don't just think of product that I'm gonna use or what I'm gonna do before I start curling. I'm thinking of the whole process. So that means product, but that also means sectioning and creating a plan. We're gonna be going into sectioning in the next module, but I just want you to keep that in mind as you're thinking about doing updos, that prepping the hair is more than just using product. So that said, I wanted to share with you some of the techniques that I use when I'm actually prepping hair to work through it for individual curls, individual sections, which we will go through in greater depth when we get to that point. But just so you get a general idea of prepping for section work, what I would do is, if I'm about to curl this section, let's say that this here is my section that I'm gonna curl. Now I'm gonna take the section that I want. If I just wanna have more of a basic curl, I'm gonna take a comb, I'm gonna comb through the section, and then I'm gonna spray it with the flexible hold hairspray or the working hairspray. So I'm gonna start from the root to the end, spray it, and then you're gonna go comb through it again. And by combing through it next time, not only are you dispersing the hairspray so that you don't have any really crunchy curls, but you're also smoothing it out and starting to eliminate that frizz. Now you can curl it and you'll have the hair sealed in more and it won't be frizzy. So that's one approach. The second approach is if you're going to be creating curls with volume. So in that case, this is how I would prep a small section for that. So let's say this is my section that I'm going to curl next and I want to have volume here. What I'll do first is use a texture spray at the root. So I'm spraying it liberally at the root. And then I'm using my hairspray, the working flexible hold from root to end. Then I'm going to comb through it. And then I will gently back comb right at the root. Now, again, I'm going to go over this further in other modules, but you can see that I already have some lift, and then I would curl this section. And so that's how I would prep each individual section for curling. So just to review that, I do an initial one-step prep, the whole brushing, dry shampoo, hairspray, brushing. That's my initial step. But then prep work continues as you go through and curl the hair and get ready to actually pin it and put it up into an updo, and you work section by section. So we will be going into that more in the following modules, but I just wanted to give you a taste of what that looks like. I hardly ever just take the hair and start curling. I really work on being intentional about each small section that I'm about to style to make sure I'm using the right product and using the right techniques to create curls that are super long lasting, that are frizz free, and that are going to look really beautiful in all of your updos.